Shinkai Makoto is a well-known anime director who's produced various films throughout the 21st century. The film being discussed will be one of his earlier films, 5 centimeters per second. The film is a simple tragic love story between male protagonist Tono Takaki and his love interest Akari Shinohara. In this film, among his other films, have many visuals and audio that convey Mono no Aware. Shinkai uses modern visuals and audio representation to convey Mono no Aware, to show the separation between two characters and their inability to maintain a relationship to a modern audience. Mono no Aware is a Japanese literary term that uses visuals and audio to project a feeling of deep longing sadness at the impermanence of life. It's equivalent to bittersweetness of nostalgia, or one's hesitant readiness to grow up in an adult world. Mono no Aware has started in the Heian period, and since then has been used in films and shows. Common visuals and audio representation are seen or heard as, for example, cherry blossoms falling in the spring, snowy days, fireworks going off, rainy days, or even cicadas on a hot summer day. While Shinkai uses these visuals and audios in his films, he also uses a more modern representation in the form of trains, rockets, and cell phones. When used in the film, they show separation between Tono and one of the female characters in each episode and the inability to be together. Trains are the most used visual and audio representation of Mono no Aware. They're commonly used in daily life, so everyone knows the feeling of riding a train. In the first episode, Takaki and Shinohara become close friends in the short time they had in elementary school. They then decide to go to the same middle school, but later Shinohara has to move due to her father's job. Sometime later, Takaki also has to move for his father's job. They decide to meet at a train station waiting room closest to Shinohara. As Takaki boards the train, the weather turns sour and causes delays. Takaki was very excited to meet Shinohara at first, but as the delays build up, he gets anxious, then feels broken. He argues to himself whether Shinohara is still waiting or not, and doesn't blame her if she's gone home. The trains were supposed to make it easier and quicker for Takaki to reunite with Shinohara, but when the delays occurred, Takaki felt as if the distance between the two was growing. While trains can bring two people together, it can also separate them. The film shows scenes when Takaki and Shinohara were separated by a train. The first scene of the film ends with Takaki not being able to cross the train tracks with Shinohara. Even though they'll reunite shortly afterwards, he seemed concerned that she ran off ahead of him.
あかり、高木くん。来年も一緒に桜見れるといいね。
This relates to the final scene of the movie when Takaki and Shinohara cross paths unknowingly at the same train tracks shown in the beginning of the movie. Before Takaki can confirm if it's Shinohara or not, the train cuts in and blocks his view of her. Takaki patiently waits for the train to pass, earnestly hoping to see Shinohara once again. Once the train passes, no one is there, and the woman is gone. Instead of feeling hopeless, he smiles, accepts the fact that she's gone, and is able to move on. It then pans back at the train crossing as the scene fades black, signifying the end of his inner turmoil of losing someone. Another scene is at the very end of the first episode when Takaki returns to Tokyo after meeting with Shinohara. Even though they feel closer than before, their lack of options to communicate and meet, and Takaki's trip back to Tokyo shows the feeling that it's the beginning of them slowly drifting away from each other. Despite all that, Takaki wants to reunite with Shinohara in the future once again. Going back to the third episode, Shinohara is going to Tokyo to meet with her fiancé, and on the train ride there is reminded of a dream she had about her and Takaki's last meeting under the cherry tree. She then stares at the same landscape Takaki stares at when he took the train ride home. Reminiscing about the past, she remembers her feelings for Takaki, but knows that they can't be together anymore. The train is a modernized visual representation that conveys Mono no Aware. In the second episode, Cosmonaut, Shinkai shows a rocket ship launching into space in a beautiful fleeting scene. It's similar to watching a firework display. They happen for a short time, and once it's over, you try to hold on to that memory. In the film, it occurs when Kanae had decided to confess to Tono. She breaks down when she feels that Tono will not reciprocate those feelings. The rocket ship is launched, smoke trails follow in pursuit, and then slowly disappears from Tono and Kanae. She then decides not to confess, as she acknowledges that the relationship will never develop like she hopes, but still loves him deeply. Although rockets flying to space is not a common occurrence, it is not a forgettable memory, just like Kanae's time with Tono. In the third episode, Takaki has a girlfriend named Mizuno. Mizuno and Takaki call and text each other, but Takaki at one point stops responding. He lets the phone ring and stares at the messages she sends. He claims that no matter how close they get physically, they won't get closer emotionally. The feeling of being ignored through phone calls and texts makes a person feel sad, and they wonder what they've done wrong to make that person ignore them. The same feeling can be described when you don't respond to someone, wondering why can't you connect with them anymore. While Shinkai's films has common visuals and audio representation of Mono no Aware to show the separation of two people and their inability to maintain a relationship, the modern audience doesn't experience those as much as those in the past where technology was in advance. Except for special occasions, most people see environmental phenomena as a hindrance. So why does Shinkai Makoto modernize these visuals and audio representations of Mono no Aware?
昨日夢を見た。
ずっと昔の夢。
その夢の中では僕たちはまだ13歳で、
そこは一面の雪に覆われた広い田園で、
人家の明かりはずっと遠くにまばらに見えるだけで、
降り積もる新雪には私たちの歩いてきた足跡しかなかった。そうやって
いつかまた一緒に桜を見ることができると、
私も彼も何の迷いもなく
そう思っていた。
いつでも探しているよ、どこかに君の姿を。向かいのホーム、路地裏の窓、こんなどこにいるはずもないのに、願いがもしも 叶うなら今すぐ君のもとへ。できないことはもう何もない。全てかけて抱きしめてみせるよ。寂しさ巻き出すだけなら誰でもいいはずなのに、星が落ちそうな夜だから自分を偽れない。 One more time 季節よ移ろわないで One more time ふざけ合った時間よ。いつでも探しているよ。どっかに君の姿を。高山でも夢の中でもこんなとこにいるはずもないのに、奇跡がもしも起こるなら今すぐ君に見せたい。新しい朝これからの僕、言えなかった時の言葉も夏の思い出が不意に消えたこと、いつでも探しているよ。どっかに君の姿を。明け方の街桜木町でこんなとこに来るはずもないのに、願いがもしも叶うなら今すぐ君のもとへ。できないことはもう何もない。全てかけて抱きしめてみせるよ。いつでも探しているよ。どっかに君のカタラを。旅先の店新聞の隅、こんなことにあるはずないのに、季節がもしも起こるなら今すぐ君に見せたい。新しい朝これからの僕、言えなかった好きなという言葉もいつでも探してしまう。どっかに君の笑顔、球根町の麦木あたり、こんなとこにいるはずもないのに、命が繰り返すならば何度も君のもとへ。欲しいものなどもう何もない。君の他に大切なものない。